Hi everyone! Today's the day! I'm so excited to bring this podcast to life. Today I have Jenessa joining me. I have to just say this really fast. When I first felt strong to do this podcast, it's not something I have been like planning all along. It's honestly been something that I felt my father would be like, okay, I need you to start this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, and then what's the next step? Like I have to like take it step by step. And the most comforting answer that I got with part of this process was, I need you to start a podcast and you're going to have Jenessa be your first episode. And I was like, okay, if Jenessa's in my first episode, then I'm good. I can do this because I have Ness. Ness is one of my very, very best friends, you guys. She is like first of all, she gave a speech with our very first Arise and got a standing ovation. So she's incredible, but also she is like, does so much behind the scenes where she is just incredible and helps me in so many ways. Sorry, I don't want my phone to go off. She helps me in so many ways, not just with business, but just in life. And she's seriously incredible. And I couldn't think of a better first guest to have with us. So I'm going to have her kind of introduce herself more with more of her story. And we're going to dive into that. But Ness, tell us a little bit more about you. You're about to pop, which I'm like so grateful to grab you before you have your baby.
I think we've got like a month left, which is crazy.
I know.
And I can tell that it's like coming because my nose is just getting like wider and wider. I'm like, we still got
Mine does that too.
I'm so glad. I'm like, we still got a little bit more to go, I think, but it's getting there.
That's a sign baby's coming. I love it.
I know. And like all these other cute women have these cute noses, and I'm like, mine just gets.
No, you are just as beautiful.
Thank you. I'm Jenessa. Like Aubrey said, I do a lot of like the graphic design, and I love photography and making stickers, and I don't know what else.
She does it all.
I try.
Every time I'm in a bind, I'm like, Ness. She fixes all my problems. That's what she does.
It's my favorite. You like use all of my skills, and it's so fun. But do you want me to just jump in? Get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so my story like really starts when my husband and I first like got married. We met over Skype. It's a story in and of itself. But we dated for 6 weeks over Skype. We were in person together for a week, and then we got engaged, and then we were long distance for 4 months, and then we got married. We just celebrated our 12-year anniversary.
It's amazing.
I wanted to have a family so fast, like so early. I wanted to have all my kids like boom, 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 and like start traveling with them and just like have them all so close together. My only goal was to finish my degree before we started having kids. So we got married in September of 2012, and I graduated April of 2013. So like 6 months later, 8 months later, I don't know. I graduated, I removed my IUD, and I was like, we're doing this. Like, I'm ready to have a baby. It took us over a year, and I didn't know anything about fertility. Like, I didn't know. We were raised that you did this, you got a baby, Yeah. And so I was so confused. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So I like dove into it, tried to figure it out, and it just wasn't happening for us. So finally, a year later, we got some testing done, and we found an issue. We fixed it, and I was pregnant. We were like over the moon excited. And then 10 weeks later, right after we'd heard the heartbeat for the first time, I just started to hemorrhage. And we rushed into the emergency room, and they told us that our baby had like 50-50 chance. Like there was still a baby there, still had a heartbeat, but like the way that I was bleeding, like there was a high chance that I could have lost the baby. And then the next morning we did. And I just remember I couldn't sleep in my bed anymore because I would wake up and not feel sick, because I get really sick in my pregnancies. And so I couldn't sleep there anymore. So I slept on an air mattress in our living room for a month, and I just stayed there. I didn't think I'd ever see the light again. I didn't think I'd ever come out of it. I was so angry with God. We had tried so long and so hard to get this baby, and Like, I just felt like it just took it. And I wasn't sure how we were going to be able to get pregnant again. So it took us, I think, 5 or 6 months after that miscarriage. And then we got pregnant with our little girl, Ellie. She's 9. That pregnancy was, I mean, not a breeze. I was sick. I had kidney stones, but like there were no complications with that pregnancy. She went to 42 weeks and had to be induced with her. And she was perfect. She's perfect. She still is. She brought so much light and like life back into my life. And then I knew I needed her first because her light has carried me through the rest of the story I'm about to tell you. So we had her, and I wanted my kids like 18 months apart. So I think, I don't know, I can't do the math. 9 months later, 10 months later, we started trying for another baby. And it wasn't working. And I forgot to share that to get Ellie, we ended up having to do Clomid because we realized really quickly that I like wasn't ovulating in all of my research to figure out what was happening. So she was a Clomid baby, and then it took 7 months after 7 months of trying before we were approved to do another round of Clomid. So I found out I was pregnant, and then 7 weeks later, I started bleeding, and it ended up being a wide ovum. So there's like a sac, but there's no baby. So I miscarried that baby. We got pregnant really fast after that one because they gave us like another round of Clomid really quickly. So we got pregnant with our baby Jet. That pregnancy, I was super sick. And we went to Disneyland in between weeks 19 and 20 with my whole family. My 2 stepsisters and their spouses came. My sister and her spouse came. Like everybody and their kids came. We stayed in a house all together. I was 20 weeks pregnant, and my little girl was way too little to like ride any of the rides. So we like chased princesses like the whole weekend. It was so fun. Like one of my favorite memories, just her and I find like seeing on the map like where the princesses were popping up, and we ran to them. So that's like all I did. Our last day in California, I woke up that morning and I went to the bathroom, and I had the thought, did my water just break? And I was like, I'm 20 weeks. That doesn't happen. So I'm like, I must have just like not gone to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and it's just like I had a lot, you know? Sorry, some of this is TMI.
TMI is welcome here.
Okay, good.
Okay, but tell me what pregnancy this one is, Ness.
This one was the 4th.
Okay.
So I had a miscarriage, Ellie, a miscarriage, and then this is the 4th.
Okay.
So, and then after that, I was in pain, but I kind of figured like I've had kidney stones before, like that's probably what it is. So we drove to our favorite beach. We were living in California at the time. I think that's an important thing to know. So my family was living in Utah, everybody, and Derek and I were in California, in the middle of nowhere, in between Barstow and Bakersfield, like the armpit of the state. It's awful. So we met them all. They like flew in or drove in, and we met them all at Disneyland. So we go to our favorite beach. And as we're driving there, I'm just in so much pain. I can't sit still, trying to like alleviate pressure. We get to the beach, and I was like, I'm just going to try going to the bathroom, see if that can like, if that'll help anything. So I go to the bathroom and realize there that I'm bleeding. So we call my doctor, and where we were living in California, it was so crappy. We had to drive like 45 minutes to the doctor. But those doctors like were not great. They just weren't good doctors. So we actually drove an hour and a half to the best doctor closest to us. It's not even close. So we were driving in an hour and a half. So I called that doctor and I asked him, like, what should I do? And he's like, you need to come in immediately. And I was like, can we just go to a hospital near us? And he's like, no, I want you to make the drive all the way to me. So I was like, all right, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. So we drove an hour and a half to him. So Disneyland's here, our house is here, and like the doctor's kind of like in the middle, an hour and a half. So we drove all the way there, and like halfway through our drive there, I realized that my pain was coming every like 2 minutes and lasting for 30 to 45 seconds. I was like, Derek, I think I'm in labor. So naive little me is like planning in my head, like what am I going to do if the baby's in the NICU? What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to do this? I had no idea about like viability or anything like that. So we arrive to the hospital, and my husband rushes and gets like the wheelchair. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I need to slow down a little bit. Gets the wheelchair, rushes me up to labor and delivery. And I'm like telling the nurse, like, I'm in labor. And she's like, well, what's your due date? And I was like, it's February 4th. It's September 18th. She's like, I don't think you're in labor, but we'll like check you or whatever. And it wasn't until they like finally got me in a room and I stood up that they were like, we need everybody in here now. Like the rest of my water broke. We delivered our baby like less than 2 minutes after that. And I'm like, is he alive? Like nobody's telling me anything. When I like tell the story, I picture or think about the story, it's like an out of body experience. Like I'm standing back in the corner and just like watching it all happen. So it took quite a while for me to be told that there were no signs of life at delivery. So he had passed like a week or two before, and my body just took that long to kick in and deliver. And so that's what happened. So I just remember sitting in the bed, just feeling numb, like not like what do you do? What do you do from that point? I remember asking like, do you have a funeral at this point? And they were like, at this point, like you either have to cremate or you have to bury, because they don't take care, like they don't take care of that for you at that point. So from then we were planning a funeral, and we were picking out a casket and picking out a plot and figuring out how. I knew we weren't going to live in California forever. So I'm like, how do we get him to Utah? So like, it was just this whole thing. And I just remember being in the hospital, and I just want to get back to Ellie. Like, I just want to be with her. So we were able to go back to the house we were staying at Disneyland. My mom had Ellie the whole time. I didn't have to worry about her at all. Am I frozen?
No, you're good. Sorry, I just was turning off my notifications that were coming in there.
You're good. So Ellie was with my mom, who besides like Derek and I is her favorite person ever. So I didn't have to worry about her at all because my family happened to be in California at the same time. When I had to go home from the hospital, my mom, my sister, my stepsisters, like my favorite people were there to like hold me up and support me. Like I came home to like a heating pad and a dinner and everything, and just like so much love, where if we had not been at Disneyland, we would have delivered at the closest hospital to us in California, which means I would have been in triage delivering my stillborn baby in between curtains. Whereas because we went to that other hospital, like I had a room to deliver in. So God was in those details and prepared that for me. At first I was so upset, like this is going to ruin the entire Disneyland trip. But instead that Disneyland trip made that situation so much more bearable. And I think that perspective helped me so much to be able to get through that. Like this had to happen. This was in his plan, but he prepared everything for it to not be the absolute worst case scenario, if that makes sense. I mean, it is, but it was made better.
And this was with Jet, right?
Yeah.
So this is still the beginning of your story.
This is still the beginning of the story.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So then after that, because we were past 20 weeks, just barely. My husband was in the Air Force, and because they have this thing where like it's really hard to move in the military and to like choose where you get to go. But they have this thing where if you have a stillborn baby after 20 weeks, you can move closer to your support system or closer to your baby. So because we buried him in Utah and my whole family was there, they moved us to Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So I got to be close to him, visit him, be with my family. We didn't have to be in the middle of nowhere anymore. So that was such a big blessing. I think it was 4 months after we lost him, we did Clomid again, and we got pregnant with our little boy Brixton. He is now 6, and it was the dark. It was one of the darkest things I've ever done. Like not knowing. I mean, up to that point, like it was like 6 or like you hit 12 weeks and everything's safe, everything's good, you're just fine. But the entire pregnancy was hard. I learned so quickly that at no point for me is this going to feel safe. And it was dark and it was heavy and I had to see a therapist, and she saw, or she helped me through a lot. But it will always remain, that pregnancy will always remain like one of the darkest times of my life. I had no idea how to like find the light again. I had no idea. I just basically survived it. And he was born, and when he was born, I like didn't understand postpartum depression because I had depression through his whole pregnancy, and then I had him, and then it was just like this weight was lifted. Like I had like the opposite of postpartum depression. It was like postpartum joy. Just like finally there was light again, and it was the opposite. So after we had Brixton, we weren't sure if we wanted to even like have another one. We knew we didn't want to end it on our loss, so we had Brixton. So we waited like 3 years, this 2.5 years to start trying. And we did 6 rounds of Clomid. And on that last round, I was like, if it doesn't work, like, I think that's God telling us we're not supposed to have another one. So the morning I was supposed to start the Clomid, my doctor called and he's like, you know what, like, let's up your dose. Like, let's up your dose for this last one. They won't let you take multiple rounds or too many rounds because if you don't get pregnant, it like impacts, I think it's ovarian cancer. So like if a pregnancy like equals it out, if that makes sense. So he's like, let's up it. And if you don't get pregnant, then we'll have to figure something else out. So I took that dose, found out I was pregnant. We were so excited. My kids were like old enough to be so excited. And at this point, my husband had gotten out of the military and had gone to like an air traffic control school in Oklahoma City for a couple of months in 2020. And after he graduated from that, they told us we were moving to the Grand Canyon. So we lived on the
like,
south.
who lives in the Grand Canyon?
I know. People were like, I didn't know you could live there. And I'm like, I could show you all the houses. They just hide it so it like really looks like a national park.
Wild. That's crazy.
So we lived an hour and a half from the grocery store. If you've ever been to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, we lived right by there's like a Smokey the Bear statue. And like if you drive past the Smokey the Bear statue, our house is like in there.
Oh my God.
And
we've been there, I think. That's crazy. Yeah. I didn't realize homes were like right there.
They hide them. Well, in the forest like helps. But yeah.
And the view. I mean, you had a crazy view, but nobody around probably.
It was incredible. No, yeah. I mean, there's millions of people there on a daily basis, but
not like support.
No.
People. Yeah.
And my neighbors were my husband's coworkers, which felt really weird. Like I'd be taking Brixton's diapers to the dump or to the what is that? A big trash can. And then I'd like see his boss. And okay, I'm in my jammies. Like just didn't feel like I could like open up to them and just like be super good friends with them, you know?
Yeah.
It just felt we had to have a boundary there. But so far away from my family. Like it was a 9-hour drive, most of it without service. And there just wasn't a lot of support or anything. We had to drive to the grocery store every single Monday. That was when my husband had like the day off, and so we'd drive to the grocery store, pick everything up, do all of our errands, and then like drive back home. So we move in, and I'm 15 weeks pregnant at that point. And our insurance hadn't quite switched over yet. I still had the old one, and the new one hadn't started. And I called the OB, and they couldn't get me in until like my 20-week appointment. But I was like, I really need that 16-week appointment. So we moved in. A week later, we drove all the way back to Utah and had my 16-week appointment. So Ellie was feeling so sad. She was missing her friends. Like, there were no friends at the Grand Canyon. So she's like missing this. So I was like, well, so I planned this like play date with her friend. And I was like, I'll take her to the 16-week ultrasound. Like, that'll be so fun for her to see baby sister. And then we'll do this play date. So I take her with me. And as I'm laying down in the ultrasound, the doctor's like not talking. I'm like, do you need me to like pull my pants down lower? Like, what do you need me to do? And he was like, just hold on with me for a second. And then all he could say for like the next 10 minutes was, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, couldn't even tell me there was no heartbeat, just kept saying, I'm so sorry. So I had to like come to that conclusion on my own. I had to explain to Ellie why there was no like baby sister like moving around in there. I had to FaceTime Derek at the same time and just like comfort everybody else while I was still trying to like process what was happening. So I had a D&C while we were home. My mom was there to like take care of Ellie, and it was rough. It was rough. I don't even know where to go after that. A couple months later, I was ready to like try again. I went to the OB in Flagstaff, and he basically told me he couldn't help me. He like looked at my chart and he's like, I can't help you with this. Like, you're gonna have to go somewhere else to figure this out. So he told me he would not give me Clomid anymore. So I was like, what do I do? Clomid is what helps me get pregnant. What am I gonna do? So I started to like research everything. Like, what do I have? I found out that I have PCOS. I found out that this is what causes that. I found out like I got rid of all the toxins in my products. Like, I changed everything. And it took us 8 months. But then I went to a different doctor, and she put me on letrozole, which is another name for Femara. And it basically does the same thing. It's a lot nicer. It's so much nicer. I tell everybody that the only times the word divorce has come up in our marriage has been the cycles that I've been on Clomid. It's a monster. It's a monster. So letrozole was so much easier. We got pregnant on our first round of letrozole, and we were driving an hour and a half for my OB appointments. We would schedule them on Mondays, and then Derek would drive me down and sit with the kids in the car while I went to the appointments, because it was still, when was that? 2022. But Flagstaff is full of Native Americans, and they were like one of the most impacted by COVID. So he like couldn't come in with me to my appointments, so I was by myself. And I go in for my 15-week ultrasound, and the doctor's like, I'm so sorry, but like, we got to get you into the big one. Like, I can't find a heartbeat. So I'm sitting there for like 30 minutes waiting for the big ultrasound to have it confirmed. And then it's confirmed. And then I just had to sit there and wait to talk to the doctor and wait to figure out all my options. And Derek was just out in the parking lot, and all I could do was text him. And I remember walking out of that doctor's office, and the second Derek saw me, just booked it across a parking lot, and I met him in the middle of the parking lot, and we both just sank to our knees and just like held in the middle of the street. And then Ellie was in the car sobbing so loudly I could hear her like outside the car. And it was just one of the lowest moments of my whole life. That D&C was hard and dark. I don't think we have time to go through that, but I tested positive for COVID that morning, and it changed everything for that delivery. I was looking forward to like seeing Derek right after the DNC, but I couldn't see him for like another 4 to 5 hours because I had to stay in the COVID OR bubble. It was awful. Geez, sorry. After that, I decided to see a fertility center because my OB was like, there's nothing else I can do for you. Like, I can't prescribe you any other medication. I can't do any other tests. So we started to see the Utah Fertility Center, and they put me on a protocol of like blood thinner shots and just a whole bunch of stuff. So I tried that, and we were so excited. Like, nobody's ever done anything like this before us before. So we felt so confident, took letrozole again, and found out pretty quickly that we were pregnant. I was so excited. Like, this is it. This is the fix.
And what pregnancy number is this, Ness?
The last one, so 8. So this is number 8, and I just had so much hope. Like, it went into every doctor's appointment, like positive this was going to be it. So at this point, we had kind of done the same thing we did after Jet, where we told Derek's work, like, we are an hour and a half from this doctor. This doctor says she can't do anything for us and wants us to go to Phoenix, 4 hours away. And I'm not getting the help that I need here. So can you please move us? So they moved us to Boise, and I moved there with the kids so that they could get started with school. And then Derek had like 2 more months to finish up at Grand Canyon. So we bought our house, we moved in, and I went in for my 16-week appointment, just so confident and positive. Everything was good. And she usually would do like the little ultrasound on me. But that day she's like, the big ultrasound room's open. Like, let's just go in there. And then I had this like sinking feeling, like, why are we doing that? So we went in the big one, and sure enough, there was no heartbeat. And I got to the point where like I couldn't FaceTime Derek anymore. I couldn't watch his face fall. It felt so cold, but I just had to send a text like, there's no heartbeat. I'm so sorry. Like, so he had to drop everything at work and drive, the 14, 15 hours to Boise. My mom came up as soon as she heard. And then I had
at this point it's happening over, and you kind of just expect that every time you were to get pregnant. Like, this is a repeating story over and over and over again.
Yeah, like, what am I missing? What's wrong? Like, every time we'd had like a new protocol or a new medication, and I was so hopeful that that was going to be it, and then it just wasn't. We're back at square one every single time. So at that point I was done. Nobody has given me any answers. All of our testing comes back completely normal. All of the autopsies, all of my blood work, all of the blood clotting factors, all of baby's genetics come back completely normal and perfect. So I'm like, I'm not going to do this again. I can't do this again. We started looking into surrogacy. We started looking into adoption. But it didn't ever feel right. So I took 18 months, and I kind of had it in the back of my head, the reason I'm not ovulating is my body's screaming at me that we can't carry a baby. If I was ovulating and having a regular cycle, that's your body's way of saying, like, we can carry one, like, we are fertile. But I wasn't ovulating, so my body is saying we can't carry a baby. So I was like, I'm not going to force ovulation with these medications anymore, so I need to figure this out. So I went through so much research, so much testing. I did foot zoning. I saw a naturopath doctor. I saw so many different doctors kind of figuring it out. But I would take some from this book and some from this doctor and some from this test and some from this. And I finally figured out that it was my blood sugar. And through miracles, I got to be able to wear a glucose monitor, and it changed my whole life. All of my symptoms, like my high heart rate, my high blood pressure, all the things that I was dealing with, and my lack of cycles everything was fixed. My cycles were regular. So it had been about 18 months since our last loss. And I was like, hey, that's all I felt like I needed to do to be able to have another baby, was to be able to do it without medication. And I got pregnant without medication for the first time ever. We found out in February. I am on a, what do they call it, like an immune protocol. So I'm on like an immunosuppressant. I'm not on blood thinner shots, but baby aspirin. I'm on just a couple of other things, and we still have no idea like what the answer is or what's going wrong. But I'm just grateful for every week we've gotten in this pregnancy, and we just hit 34 weeks yesterday, and just so grateful. I'm just so grateful, and I still have no idea. But I always wanted the testing, and I always wanted every single medication that I could have, and I wanted them to check my urine, and I wanted them to check for infection every week. And I just had this like white knuckle grip on like, I can do this. I can make sure we don't miss anything. And this pregnancy, I've just let it all go, and I am just leaving it up to God and collaborating with Him. And if the doctor says, let's do this, I ask Him first. And then we've just been working through it together, and it's working, and I'm just really grateful. And I haven't had my urine tested once. Like, I haven't had all the tests that I wanted to do the last time. I haven't had it done. I just kind of figured, you know what, if this is God's plan, He's going to help it. He's going to make it work. And if there's something that I need to do specifically, He's going to tell me. He's not going to, as long as I stay close and I stay open to the Spirit, He's not going to let me miss what I need to be able to bring this baby here. It just feels like redemption, and it just feels like a straight up miracle. Every baby is, but I don't know that I'd realize that if I hadn't lost all of these ones, but it just feels like such a miracle.
So, I love that. Thank you so much, Ness, for sharing. It makes me still teary up too. Something I get asked a lot is, how do you go through all of these losses, and now here you are pregnant? How are you not allowing those losses to rob the joy that you can feel now?
I mean, it still kind of does. But I've decided that this pregnancy, I'm pregnant until I'm not. And with all those other babies, I only got them for such a short time, and I wanted them to know how much I loved them and how excited I was for them. And so I'm like, I'm going to be excited, and I'm going to love on this baby from the beginning, because even if I lose them, that's going to feel better than I was never connected to them anyway. It's a mental shift. It's a perspective, and it's something that I have to work on every single day. And I've had to live in gratitude rather than fear. I was grateful we made it through 14 weeks and 15 weeks. 16 weeks was a really rough week to get through. I went into that ultrasound, and she said there was a heartbeat, and I don't think I've ever sobbed harder. Like, just lost it. Derek was crying. The ultrasound tech was crying. Like, it just was this like moment. And I was just so grateful. I was fearful that day, but I was so grateful that we made it through. And I'm just grateful for every week we get with him, and so grateful that we've made it to 34. I don't know how we've done it, but we have. It's been God. That's how we've done it. I've listened to Him, and I've asked for other things that the doctor wasn't going to do, because God told me this is what we should do, and she was willing to try that, and like, here we are.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because of the losses you've had, I know you've gone through so much grief, and those who have gone through grief know it's like a wave. Like, it's just waves coming, and sometimes you feel it, sometimes you're okay, and then sometimes something will trigger you, or something comes up where you just feel it so, so deeply. What would you say is like the first step if someone is experiencing grief right now, whether it be a miscarriage or loss of somebody, or even like a loss of a relationship, or, there's so much that can be a loss for people. What would you say is like the first step into healing with your grief?
To sit in for a little bit. So when I spoke at Arise, the first Arise, I had this whole story, and I had 45 minutes to share it. And I was like, how am I going to share this and keep people interested and make it so that it's not just this like, blah, 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 blah. How am I going to do it? And I was driving home from Utah to Boise, and I had turned off all the music. My kids had their like headphones on, and I was just like, how do I do this? How do I share this? And it came to me like an hour after I had been quiet, and it was like Chutes and Ladders. That's how you share it. And then as I started thinking through it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've done. So every loss has been a slide that has taken me back to square one, or like lower on than where I was. And then I was thinking about the ladders and like how I climbed out of that dark space and how I got higher again and how I got closer to the light and closer to Christ. And then it was a little while later that I realized there's way more than just slides and ladders in Chutes and Ladders. There are spaces that you have to go where there's not an immediate drop and there's not a climb. There is space. And you call it the middle. And mine is the spaces in between my ladders and my slides. You have to sit in it. You can't immediately run from it because it's going to sit there and it's going to manifest in other ways. And if you push it away, the waves are going to come like faster and harder because it is your body screaming at you that there is something that we need to address and we need to fix. Mm-hmm. So sitting in it and feeling it before you try to climb out of it is super important. You need to cry it out. You need to scream. You need to be angry at God. Like there have been a lot of prayers where I've just I have yelled at him and demanded answers, and I think you need to do that. You need to move that emotion out, because if you push it away, the waves come faster and more often. Whereas if you take the time, I actually like to schedule it. And I kind of like bring it on demand. I will turn on a playlist, like it makes me cry. I could give you all my songs that are on it. But just things that like trigger that, and I'll sob. And then because I was able to move that emotion out, it doesn't hit me hard at random times. I'd rather schedule it and know, okay, I'm going to cry from 1 to 2 today, rather than be at the grocery store and see a baby and be like, oh my gosh, I got to cry right now and be at the grocery store immediately. So scheduling it, letting it out, feeling it helps it so that it doesn't hit you. And I mean, it still does, but it's not as hard.
Ooh, I love that. Scheduling your grief. Mm-hmm. I love that. Because so often it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but you have control over your emotions to be able to schedule it. That's beautiful. I love that.
Proactive on it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, something else that I get asked a ton on my little Sunday Q&As is when someone is experiencing grief, like somebody that's going through what you've gone through, like what is something that people can do to help their loved ones that are going through something like this?
Showing up. Honestly, some of my favorites have been friends that came over and they didn't even bring a gift. They didn't have time. They just showed up at my doorstep and they just sat with me on my couch and they just listened, or they just held me while I cried, or they brought ice cream and we just watched a show and we didn't talk at all. So just show up. And if you feel more comfortable showing up with dinner or groceries or a gift, like do that. Just anything you can do to show up and be there for them. And if you live far away from them, or if you don't live far away from them, praying for them. Honestly, I can feel the prayers. We asked for fasting and prayers for this pregnancy, and this pregnancy has flown, and it has felt so much easier physically and mentally than I ever anticipated. And like, I can feel them, and I owe it to the prayers. Like, I know that if we didn't have those, it would be so much harder. So praying for them too, showing up, praying for them. Honestly, groceries are a hard one because I never wanted to go to the grocery store. Like, I don't know what it is about the grocery store and grief, but get their staples, drop their staples off, get some snacks, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that answer. I love you, Ness. Your whole story is just so, I've been able to have like a bird's eye view, and it's just so incredible to watch you go through it again and again and again and still have faith in God and Jesus Christ and still have hope in him, where so many people would feel like that is something God is taking away from them, or, whatever it might be. I love the quote from, I think it's Elder Worthland. He talks about how the tears we experience of grief and sadness will turn to tears of joy and happiness. And I just I can't wait for November to come and you to have your baby and have a lot of those tears made up back to you, and how incredible that we have that, whether it's in this life or the next, to be able to have that promise to us. Like, whatever we're facing now will be made up to us. We had this lesson on Sunday about focusing our lives around Jesus Christ. And I truly believe that that long suffering, or that those trials that people get hit with over and over and over again, I really think you're like qualifying for something greater. And if we could just have a glimpse and see what that was, you would say, I'll do it again. Like, it's that great. And I don't know that people are like, oh yeah, I'll do it again. Like, when they go through stuff, I don't think that's like a common response. But I think with time and perspective and God's teaching us, I think we will look back and be like more full of gratitude than hatred about it, or anger about it. I think we'll feel that. And I see that with every loss and every like standing back up for you. It's like, you've had to do that. You've had to find that light within Christ and hope again and again and again. And I think that is what is so incredible about your story, is it's falling over and over and over and taking that choice to stand back up again. Like, that is what you've done. And that is what I've loved so, so much about your faith, is that ability to do that. I don't think everybody has that strength, and it's beautiful to see. So thanks so much for sharing this. I love that.
Thanks.
As we wrap up, I just would love to hear, like, what does it mean for you to arise within?
You told me you were going to ask this question. You can sit in the grief, and I have, and you should for a little bit. I started my Instagram account because I was searching for women who had been through what I had been through, and their accounts were F this, F that. Can you believe this? Mom said this. Like, just so angry at it. And I was like, I don't love that. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to be the victim. I don't want to let it eat me alive. I don't want that. It doesn't feel good. I can't let this ruin the rest of my life. I can't let this ruin my motherhood. I can't let this just be this heavy, dark weight on my chest. I can't do that. So I started my account, and I was like, I want it to be hopeful. I want it to let women know that, yes, it hurts, but it's a season, and you will find light again. It will always hurt, but you can feel joy again, and you have to have both. If you're going to hurt, you have to feel the joy. Or how do you keep going? I don't know how you keep going. So you can sit in the grief and let it eat you alive, or you can pick yourself up. You can take the steps to climb the ladder. And for me, the ladder has been like opening my blinds and my curtains. And it has been putting my phone away and spending time with my kids and laughing. It has been going to retreats with you and like feeling like a kid again with my friends, going to the Andy Grammer concert. Like, that's
yeah.
the best. Those are like the steps in my ladder. And you can find the light again and be the light and hope that others need. And I feel like I have been that for a few women, and it feels so much better than just sitting in it and being angry and using those words about it and putting down women who can have babies easily. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm so grateful those women got to have those miracle babies. I don't need to put them down or silence them or do anything just because I lost mine. Like, you have to do it yourself. It's not going to happen for you. You have to take the steps. And so I think it's coming to realize, arising within is coming to realize that it is you, and the steps can be done, but you have to take them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thanks, Ness. And I love what she's doing, you guys. She's like literally creating a space that's safe for women to talk about miscarriage and loss, and to feel that support, but also to not like let that ruin their entire lives. She is a perfect example of arising after something so hard and shining a light on it and showing that there's hope to come. So thank you, Jenessa. I love you so much. Thanks for being here today. And we did it. We did our first episode. Thanks, you guys, for joining. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Ness.